The Galactic Council chamber stretched vast and imposing, its crystalline walls reflecting the light of 1,000 distant stars. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sections, each platform designed to accommodate their unique physiologies. The Cavallari floated in suspension tanks filled with methane gas. The Thras stood on platforms heated to temperatures that would melt human flesh. The insectoid chitters clustered together, their compound eyes glittering in the dim light. At the very back, almost hidden in shadow, sat Marcus Chen, the sole representative of humanity. His small metal chair looked pitiful compared to the grand displays around him. No special accommodations, no impressive technology, just a human in a simple gray suit, holding a standard tablet computer that looked ancient compared to the holographic displays everyone else used. The other species rarely acknowledged Earth's representative. Humanity had only joined the Council 3 years ago, and in galactic terms they were infants. Embarrassing infants at that. Ambassador Kelthar of the Valorian Empire stood at the central podium, his 4 arms gesturing dramatically. The Valorians were the oldest member species, having achieved faster-than-light travel over 12,000 years ago. Their military might was legendary, their technology nearly incomprehensible to younger species. "We gather today to discuss the crisis in the outer reaches," Kelthar announced, his translator converting his clicking mandibles into common galactic. "The mining colonies on Terminus 7 have fallen silent. All attempts at communication have failed. We must decide on a course of action." The chamber erupted in discussion. The Thras proposed immediate military intervention. The Cavallari suggested waiting for more information. The peaceful Luminari advocated for a diplomatic approach, despite having no idea who or what had attacked the colony. Marcus listened quietly, taking notes on his tablet. He had learned quickly that speaking up in council sessions was pointless. The first time he had offered a suggestion, the chamber had fallen silent. Then laughter had rippled through the assembly. Not cruel laughter exactly, but the kind adults make when a child says something naive. After that, Marcus had stopped volunteering ideas. He attended every session, recorded everything, and sent detailed reports back to Earth, but he had accepted his role as an observer in a gathering of giants. "Perhaps the humans have a perspective," the voice came from Ambassador Lyria of the Luminari, one of the few species that treated humans with something resembling respect. The chamber fell silent. 46 pairs of eyes, sensors, and visual organs turned toward the back of the room. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. He had not expected to be called upon. "Thank you, Ambassador Lyria," Marcus said, standing slowly. His voice, translated into common galactic, sounded thin and weak compared to the booming declarations of the other species. "I was merely reviewing the data we have available." "And what does this data tell the representative from Earth?" Kelthar asked. There was no mockery in his tone, but no real interest either. He was being polite, nothing more. Marcus swallowed hard. The colony went silent exactly 47 minutes after its scheduled ore shipment departed. The shipment arrived at its destination with no issues. The colony's distress beacon never activated. All security systems show no signs of forced entry or combat. Yes, we all have access to this information," one of the Thras interrupted, smoke rising from his heat platform. "What is your point, human?" "My point is that this does not look like an attack," Marcus continued. "It looks like everyone simply stopped what they were doing at exactly the same moment." The chamber filled with dismissive sounds. Several species made gestures that Marcus had learned meant foolish or naive. Without a distress call, without defensive measures being activated, "We must consider the possibility of a technical malfunction," Marcus pressed on, feeling his face flush. "Or perhaps a biological agent that acted too quickly for anyone to respond." "The young human suggests we fear ghosts and invisible diseases," Kelthar said, amusement clear in his translated voice. "The outer reaches are dangerous. Pirates, raiders, and worse lurk in those systems. Obviously, the colony was overwhelmed before they could call for help." Murmurs of agreement filled the chamber. Marcus sat down, feeling his suggestions dismissed yet again. The council voted to send a military reconnaissance team, led by the Valorians, to investigate. The mission would depart in 3 days. Marcus filed his report that evening from his tiny apartment in the diplomatic quarter. Earth had not given him much of a budget. While other ambassadors lived in sprawling compounds with full staffs, Marcus had 2 rooms and a coffee maker that only worked half the time. He wrote carefully, noting his concerns about the council's approach. The disappearance bothered him in ways he could not quite articulate. Something about the pattern felt wrong, but he had no evidence, only instinct. The next morning, Marcus did what he always did. He went to the council archives and began researching. If the older species would not take his questions seriously, he would find his own answers. The archives were vast, containing records spanning tens of thousands of years. Marcus had spent months learning to navigate them, and he had discovered something interesting. For all their advanced technology and ancient wisdom, the older species rarely looked backward. They assumed that their knowledge was complete, that their experience covered every possible scenario. Marcus searched for similar incidents. Colonies going silent, no distress calls, no signs of struggle. He found 3 cases in the past 200 years. In each instance, the council had assumed pirates or raiders. In each instance, the military investigation had found the colonies completely empty. No bodies, no damage, no clues. In each case, the mystery had been filed away as unsolved, and the council had moved on to other matters. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. 4 colonies now, all showing the same pattern, and each one had been dismissed, ignored, forgotten. He began pulling more data, cross-referencing locations, dates, and circumstances. He worked through the night, his coffee maker working overtime, fueled by the stubborn determination that had made humanity reach for the stars in the first place. By morning, he had something. It was not proof, not yet, but it was a pattern that suggested something far more dangerous than pirates was lurking in the outer reaches. And Marcus realized that he had a choice to make. He could file another report that would be ignored, attend another council session where his voice meant nothing, and watch as another military team walked into a trap. Or he could do something that would likely end his diplomatic career. Something that would confirm every species' belief that humans were reckless and foolish. Marcus looked at his data one more time, then made his decision. He began typing a message not to Earth, but to someone who might actually listen. His hands moved across the keyboard with purpose, each word carefully chosen. Because Marcus Chen understood something that the ancient species had forgotten in their millennia of supremacy. Sometimes the newest voice in the room sees what everyone else has missed. Ambassador Lyria of the Luminari read Marcus's message 3 times before responding. The Luminari were beings of pure energy, contained within crystalline matrices that allowed them to interact with physical matter. They were also the closest thing Marcus had to an ally in the council. The message was simple but desperate. Marcus had found a pattern, and he needed someone with actual authority to review his findings. Lyria agreed to meet him in one of the archive's private study chambers. "This is highly irregular, Marcus Chen," Lyria said, her crystalline form pulsing with soft blue light. "Contacting council members privately about official business can be seen as an attempt to manipulate votes or create factions." "I know," Marcus replied, spreading his data across the table's holographic display. "But in 2 days a military team is going to Terminus 7, and I think they are walking into something we do not understand." Lyria studied the information silently. Marcus had organized everything meticulously. 4 colonies spread across 2 centuries, all going silent in identical ways. He had mapped their locations, finding they formed an almost perfect arc along the edge of known space. "The council investigated these incidents," Lyria said slowly. "The council sent military teams who found empty buildings and no answers," Marcus countered. "Then they filed the cases as unsolved and forgot about them. But look at the timeline. The intervals between disappearances are getting shorter. 200 years between the first and second, 90 years between the second and third, 45 years between the third and fourth. You believe the pattern is accelerating?" "I believe something is learning," Marcus said quietly. "Something is getting better at whatever it does. And I think Terminus 7 is just the beginning." Lyria's light dimmed, a sign Marcus had learned indicated deep thought. "These are serious accusations, Marcus Chen. You suggest that an unknown intelligence has been operating on our borders for 2 centuries, and we have failed to notice. I suggest that you stop looking for things you do not recognize," Marcus said carefully. "The Valorian Empire has not faced a serious external threat in 3,000 years. The Council assumes it knows every danger in the galaxy. But what if something new has emerged? Something that does not follow the patterns you expect? And you believe humanity, with its 3 years of council membership and its primitive technology, has identified a threat that escaped our notice? Marcus felt the weight of those words. It sounded absurd when stated so plainly, but he pressed on. I believe that humans are still learning to expect the unexpected. We spent our entire history on one planet, fighting each other, struggling to survive. We only reached the stars 50 years ago. We are not wise, Ambassador. We are not advanced. But we are paranoid and we are persistent. And we have very fresh memories of being the ones who did not know what was out there in the dark. Lyria's light pulsed in a pattern Marcus had learned, meant curiosity mixed with concern. What would you have me do? Delay the military expedition by 1 day. Present my findings to the Council's Science Division. Let them review the pattern. The Valorian military command will not appreciate the delay. Kelthar will see it as a challenge to his authority. Better his pride is wounded than his soldiers disappear, Marcus replied. Lyria was silent for a long moment. Then her light flared bright. I will take your findings to the Science Division tonight. I cannot promise they will listen, but I will ensure they see what you have found. In return, you must attend tomorrow's council session and present this yourself if they request it. Marcus felt his stomach tighten. Standing before the full council, making claims that contradicted their assumptions would make him look either brilliant or foolish. There would be no middle ground. I will be there, he said. The next morning, Marcus arrived at the council chamber early. His hands shook slightly as he organized his presentation files. He had not slept, spending the night running simulations and checking his data for any errors. The chamber filled slowly. Marcus noticed Lyria enter, followed by 3 members of the Science Division. The Valorian delegation arrived with their usual military precision, Kelthar at their head. The ambassador's expression, as much as Marcus could read Valorian body language, suggested irritation. This council session has been called to order, the Arbiter announced, a neutral AI that managed procedural matters. Ambassador Lyria has requested an emergency review of new intelligence regarding the Terminus 7 incident. Kelthar's mandibles clicked sharply. The military expedition departs tomorrow. Any intelligence should be directed through military channels. The intelligence suggests the expedition may be insufficient, Lyria said calmly. I request the council hear Specialist Chen's findings. The chamber filled with surprised sounds. Marcus had never been called specialist before. It was a term of respect, reserved for those with unique expertise. Lyria was giving him legitimacy he had not earned. Very well, the Arbiter said. Specialist Chen, you have the floor. Marcus stood, willing his voice to remain steady. Thank you, Arbiter. I have identified a pattern in unsolved colony disappearances that may be relevant to Terminus 7. He activated his presentation. The holographic display filled the center of the chamber, visible to all. 4 colony locations appeared as red dots on a galactic map. These 4 colonies, including Terminus 7, disappeared under identical circumstances across 2 centuries. No distress calls, no signs of combat, complete evacuation of all personnel with no trace of where they went. Ancient history, one of the Thros delegates grumbled. What does this prove? The timeline proves something is learning, Marcus continued, highlighting the intervals between incidents. Each disappearance happens faster than the last. Whatever is responsible is refining its methods. He zoomed out, showing the arc the colonies formed. The locations suggest a pattern of movement. Something is traveling along the edge of our space, testing our defenses or studying our colonies. Speculation, Kelthar declared. You have no evidence of an intelligence behind these incidents. I have 2 centuries of identical unexplained disappearances forming a mathematical pattern, Marcus shot back, surprising himself with his own boldness. That is not coincidence. That is design. One of the Science Division members, a chitter named Zixtal, spoke up. The probability analysis is compelling. The pattern of acceleration follows an exponential learning curve consistent with adaptive intelligence. You give credence to this? Kelthar demanded. I give credence to mathematics, Zixtal replied. The human's analysis is crude but fundamentally sound. Something is operating with purpose in these regions. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species dismissed Marcus's findings as paranoid fantasy. Others, particularly the scientific representatives, found the pattern troubling. Marcus stood silently, watching the most powerful beings in the galaxy argue about data he had compiled in a tiny apartment with a malfunctioning coffee maker. Finally, the arbiter called for order. The council must vote. Should the military expedition be delayed pending further investigation? The vote was close. Many species sided with the Valorians, seeing delay as weakness. But enough scientific and diplomatic members voted for caution that the measure passed by a narrow margin. The military expedition was postponed for 72 hours. Kelthar stood, his massive form radiating displeasure. Let the record show that the Valorian Empire protests this decision. When the investigation finds nothing unusual, we will remember who wasted the council's time. The ambassador's eyes fixed on Marcus as he spoke those words. It was a clear message. Marcus had made an enemy today, but as the session ended and Marcus gathered his materials, Lyria approached him. You did well, Marcus Chen. You gave the council pause. That is more than most achieve in their entire careers. I hope I am right, Marcus said quietly. So do I, Lyria replied. Because if you are wrong, humanity's voice in this council will be diminished for a generation. And if you are right, she did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. If Marcus was right, then something unknown and dangerous had been hunting on the edges of galactic civilization for 200 years. And now it had been noticed. The 72 hours passed with agonizing slowness. Marcus spent every waking moment in the archives, digging deeper into the historical records. He barely ate, surviving on nutrition bars and terrible coffee, searching for anything that might explain what was happening. On the third day, the council convened again. This time the atmosphere was different. The science division had spent the entire delay period analyzing Marcus's data, and they had found something. Chief Scientist Zixtal took the podium. Her insectoid form clicking with what Marcus had learned was excitement. We have completed our analysis of the disappearance pattern. The human specialist's conclusions were correct. Moreover, we have identified 17 additional incidents spanning the past 500 years that match the same profile. The chamber fell silent. 17? Lyria's voice carried genuine shock. They were not classified as related incidents because they occurred across different sectors and involved different types of installations. Mining colonies, research outposts, even 2 military listening posts, all shared the same characteristics. All were dismissed as isolated mysteries. Kelthar stood slowly. Are you suggesting an intelligence has been operating against Council space for 5 centuries without detection? That is precisely what the data suggests, Zixtal replied. The pattern indicates systematic study of our civilizations. Each incident provides no casualties, no destruction, simply complete absence of personnel. What does it want? Someone asked, unknown. But the acceleration pattern suggests it is preparing for something. The incidents are now occurring every few years rather than every few decades. The council erupted in heated discussion. Fear, anger, and disbelief mixed in equal measure. Marcus sat quietly, feeling vindicated but taking no pleasure in it. Being right meant something terrible was lurking in the dark. The arbiter restored order. The council must decide on a course of action. Chief Scientist Zixtal, what does the science division recommend? We recommend a joint scientific and military investigation team be sent to Terminus 7, but not the standard military approach. We need specialists in xenobiology, psychology, and unknown intelligence analysis. And who would lead such a mission? Kelthar asked, his tone suggesting he already knew the answer would displease him. Zixtal turned, her compound eyes focusing on the back of the chamber. The specialist who identified the pattern should be part of the investigation team. His perspective has proven valuable. Every being in the chamber turned to look at Marcus. He felt his blood run cold. Absolutely not, Kelthar declared. Human technology is centuries behind our own. Their understanding of galactic threats is infantile. Sending a human on such a critical mission would be absurd. The human saw what we missed, Lyria countered. Perhaps his perspective is exactly what this mission needs. The debate raged for an hour. Species took sides based on politics, prejudice, and practicality. Marcus wanted to volunteer, wanted to stand up and demand to be included, but he also knew that appearing too eager might work against him. Finally, a compromise was reached. An investigation team of 12 members would be assembled, representing 7 different species. Marcus would be included as an observer and analyst, but under strict conditions. He would follow orders from the mission commander, refrain from independent action, and accept immediate recall if deemed necessary. It was designed to limit his role, to keep the primitive human from interfering with important work. But Marcus did not care about the restrictions. He was going to Terminus 7. The team assembled over the next 3 days. Commander Shalcor, a Valorian military veteran, led the group. His selection was a political compromise meant to appease those who wanted military leadership. But the rest of the team consisted of scientists, xenologists, and intelligence specialists. Marcus met them in the briefing room of the Council's deep space research vessel, the Infinite Horizon. The ship was a marvel of technology, capable of faster-than-light travel that made Earth's experimental drives look like steam engines. "Let us establish protocols," Shalcor began. His forearms crossed in a posture Marcus had learned indicated skepticism. "We do not know what we face. We proceed with maximum caution. The scientists will analyze everything. The security team will maintain defensive positions at all times, and the human will observe and report nothing more." Marcus bit back a response. He had not fought his way onto this mission to be sidelined. Dr. Nimra, a Cavalari xenologist floating in her portable methane tank, spoke up. "I propose we also maintain open communication. If anyone observes something unusual, regardless of rank or species, they should speak immediately. Novel threats require novel approaches." "Agreed," Zixtal added. "We cannot afford to dismiss observations based on hierarchy." Shalakor's mandibles clicked in what might have been reluctant agreement. "Very well, but all field decisions remain with military command." The journey to Terminus 7 took 4 days at faster-than-light speeds. Marcus spent the time studying everything known about the colony. Population of 317. Mixed species mining operation. Established 12 years ago. Profitable. No history of labor disputes or political tensions. A normal colony that had simply stopped existing. He also spent time getting to know the team members. Most were professional but distant. They saw him as a curiosity at best, a liability at worst. Only Dr. Nimra and a young luminary technician named Roll showed genuine interest in his perspective. "Why did you join Council service?" Nimra asked one evening as they reviewed data in the ship's laboratory. Marcus considered the question. "On Earth, we spent most of our history divided. Nations, religions, tribes. We nearly destroyed ourselves a dozen times. When we finally reached the stars and found the Council, we realized how small we were. How much we had to learn. I wanted to be part of that. To help humanity find its place among the older species. And instead you found yourself ignored and dismissed," Nimra observed. "Yes. But I also found a pattern no one else saw. Maybe being ignored has advantages. People say things around you when they think you do not matter." Nimra's tank bubbled with what Marcus had learned was laughter. Wisdom born of humility. Perhaps that is humanity's contribution to the Council. The Infinite Horizon dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Terminus 7 system. Immediately, every sensor on the ship went active, scanning for threats. "Reading normal stellar activity," the navigation officer reported. "No unusual energy signatures. No ships in the system besides our own." "Take us in slowly," Shalcor ordered. "Full sensor sweeps every 10,000 kilometers." The approach took hours. The ship crept through the system like a nervous animal, every crew member tense and alert. Marcus watched the main display, seeing Terminus 7 grow from a distant point to a visible world. It looked peaceful. The mining colony sat on the planet's largest moon, its lights still burning, power systems still operational. Everything appeared normal from orbit. "Life signs?" Shalcor demanded. "Negative," the sensor operator replied. "No biological readings. No heat signatures consistent with living beings. 317 people do not simply vanish," Zixtal muttered. "Launch reconnaissance drones," Shalcor ordered. "Full spectrum analysis of the colony. I want to know what happened before we set foot on that moon." The drones swept across the colony's surface, their sensors recording everything. The data streamed back to the Infinite Horizon, where the science team analyzed every detail. Marcus studied the readings on his personal display. The colony looked perfect, buildings intact, equipment operational. Even the cafeteria showed signs of a meal in progress, food still on tables as if the diners had simply stood up and walked away. But there were no bodies. No signs of struggle, no clues, just like the other colonies. "Commander," Marcus said quietly, "request permission to speak." Shalcor turned to him, clearly irritated at the interruption. "What is it, human?" "The colony's communication systems are still active. We should check the security recordings." "Obviously," Shalcor snapped. "That is standard protocol." But when the team tried to access the security system, they found something impossible. The recordings had been erased. Not destroyed, not corrupted. Deliberately deleted with surgical precision, leaving only a message in the system's memory. A message that read in perfect common galactic, "We are not ready to meet." Not yet. The chamber fell silent as everyone stared at those words. Something intelligent had taken the colony, and it had left them a note. The message changed everything. What had been a mysterious disappearance was now confirmed first contact with an unknown intelligence. An intelligence that clearly understood Council languages and had deliberately chosen not to reveal itself. Shalcor immediately transmitted the finding back to Council headquarters. Within hours, the investigation had been elevated to a crisis. The Council's First Contact Division was mobilized and a dozen additional ships were dispatched to the Terminus 7 system. But Marcus could not stop staring at those words on his screen. "We are not ready to meet." Not yet, not ready. That implied preparation. Planning. Whatever had taken the colony was working towards something specific. And 317 people were part of that plan. "We need to go down to the surface," Marcus said during the emergency team meeting. "Absolutely not," Shalcor replied immediately. "We do not expose personnel to an unknown threat." "But we have to understand what happened," Marcus pressed. "The drones can only tell us so much. We need to examine the colony directly. Look for clues the sensors might miss." Dr. Nimra supported him. "The human is correct. Automated scans have their limits. There may be biological traces, psychological indicators, or cultural context that only sentient analysis can identify." Zixtal clicked in agreement. "I must examine the site directly. The pattern of the disappearance may reveal the nature of what we face." Shalcor looked at his team, clearly torn between caution and duty. "If we descend to the colony, we do so with maximum security, full combat gear, constant communication with the ship. And at the first sign of danger, we evacuate immediately." 6 team members made the descent, including Marcus. They wore environmental suits with full life support and communication systems. Marcus felt ridiculous in the bulky gear designed for species with different body types, but he was not about to complain. The shuttle landed in the colony's main square. Through the viewport, Marcus could see normal buildings, normal streets, normal lights. It looked like any frontier settlement in Council space, a place where different species came together to work and build a future, except everyone was gone. "Stay in pairs," Shalcor ordered as they disembarked. "Maintain visual contact at all times. Report anything unusual." Marcus was paired with Roll, the young luminary technician. They moved through the colony together, their footsteps echoing in the empty streets. Marcus recorded everything with his suit's cameras while Roll scanned for energy signatures. They entered the residential section first. Apartments stood open, belongings scattered as if the occupants had left in the middle of daily activities. A child's toy sat on a table. A half-read book lay open on a couch. A shower still ran in one bathroom until Rawl turned it off. "This is deeply disturbing," Rawl said, their crystalline form pulsing with uneasy colors. "It is as if time stopped and everyone simply ceased to exist." Marcus examined a family's apartment more closely. Photographs on the walls showed smiling faces of multiple species. A calendar marked important dates. A kitchen displayed cooking in progress, now spoiled after days of abandonment. "They did not know it was coming," Marcus said. There was no warning, no time to react. They moved to the industrial section next. The mining equipment still hummed with power, automated systems continuing their programmed tasks. But the control station stood empty, displays flashing with maintenance alerts that no one would answer. Marcus approached one of the main computer terminals and began examining the logs. His fingers moved quickly across the unfamiliar interface, his 3 years in the Council having taught him to adapt to alien systems. "What are you looking for?" Rawl asked. "Anything that might tell us what they saw or experienced before they vanished?" The logs showed normal operations right up until the moment of disappearance. Shift reports, production numbers, routine communications. Then at exactly 1437 local time, everything stopped. But Marcus noticed something odd. The last few entries before the silence showed small anomalies. Workers reporting feeling tired. Maintenance crews mentioning strange echoes in the tunnels. Security guards noting that the automated system seemed to be acting slightly off, though diagnostics showed nothing wrong. "Commander," Marcus transmitted to Shalcor, "I am finding reports of minor unusual experiences in the hours before the disappearance. Nothing dramatic, just small things that made people uncomfortable." "What kind of things?" Shalcor's voice came back. "Fatigue, auditory anomalies, equipment behaving strangely, all dismissed as stress or minor malfunctions at the time." Across the colony, Zixtal's excited voice suddenly crackled over the communication channel. "I have found something. All team members converge on the Central Administration Building immediately." Marcus and Roll rushed to the location, meeting the others at the colony's main office complex. Zixtal stood in front of a large display wall, her antennae quivering with excitement. "Look at this," she said, activating the display. It showed the colony's central computer core, which maintained backups of all systems. "The message we found was not the only thing left for us. There is another file, hidden in the backup systems. It was designed to be found only by deliberate investigation." "What does it contain?" Shalcor demanded. "A recording, from the entity that took the colonists." The team gathered around as Zixtal activated the file. The display filled with an image that made everyone step back in shock. It was not a face or a form that any of them recognized. Instead, it was a constantly shifting pattern of light and shadow, geometric shapes that seemed to exist in more dimensions than their eyes could process. Looking at it directly caused a strange sensation, like trying to focus on something that existed slightly outside normal space. Then it spoke. The voice came through every communication system simultaneously, bypassing their translators and speaking directly in each team member's native language. "I am called the Curator," it said. "I have been observing your civilizations for what you would measure as 683 years. I have studied your species, your cultures, your potentials. The individuals I have selected from your colonies are safe. They are guests, not prisoners. They are being shown wonders beyond your current comprehension." Marcus felt his heart race. This was first contact, but not the kind anyone had imagined. "You wonder why I have not revealed myself formally?" The Curator continued. "The answer is simple. Your council consists of 47 species. 46 of them achieved faster-than-light travel through thousands of years of gradual development. They grew wise as they grew powerful. They learned caution along with capability." The entity paused, and Marcus could swear it was looking directly at him through the recording. "But there is one species among you who reached the stars through desperation and stubborn refusal to accept limitations. One species who went from atmospheric flight to faster-than-light travel in less than a century. One species who looked at the impossible and decided to try anyway. Humanity," Marcus whispered. "Humanity," the Curator confirmed. "They are why I reveal myself now. Because in all my observations of galactic civilizations, I have never encountered a species quite like them. They are not the strongest. They are not the smartest. They are not the oldest or the wisest. But they are the most unpredictable, the most adaptable, the most dangerous." "This is ridiculous," Shalcor growled. "Humanity is barely capable of interstellar travel. They are no threat to anyone." But the Curator's image seemed to shift its attention. "You misunderstand. I do not fear human weapons or human ships. I fear human thinking. They do not accept the universe as it is. They constantly try to change it. They see problems as challenges rather than barriers. And most importantly, they refuse to be ignored." The image focused on something outside the camera's view. A single human representative, given no resources and no respect, identified my presence through patterns that 46 advanced civilizations missed. That is why humanity concerns me, not because of what they are now, but because of what they will become. The recording shifted, showing images of the taken colonists. They appeared to be in some kind of vast facility, watching displays that showed things Marcus could not comprehend. Galaxies being born, dimensions folding into impossible shapes, concepts that existed beyond normal physics. "I am preparing your people for what comes next," the Curator said. "The universe is larger and stranger than your council imagines. There are things in the dark between stars that would terrify even the oldest of your species. You need to be ready. And humanity's presence in your council means that ready or not, you will face these things sooner than I had planned. Because humans cannot leave well enough alone, Marcus muttered. Precisely, the curator agreed, as if it could hear him across time. So I am accelerating my timeline. The colonists I have taken are learning. When I return them, they will teach others. And humanity, whether you intend to or not, will push the entire council to evolve faster than it would naturally. The image began to fade. We will meet face to face when you are ready. Not yet, but soon. Sooner than any of you expect. The human has ensured that. The recording ended, leaving the team standing in stunned silence. Finally, Shalkor spoke. We need to report this immediately. This changes everything. The journey back to council headquarters felt like traveling through a dream. The team said little, each member processing what they had witnessed in their own way. Marcus spent most of the trip reviewing the curator's message over and over, analyzing every word, every implication, an entity that had been watching the council for nearly 7 centuries. An entity that collected people to teach them things beyond normal understanding. An entity that seemed particularly interested in humanity, not because of what they were, but because of what they represented: change, unpredictability, the refusal to accept the way things had always been. When they arrived at council headquarters, they found the entire station in chaos. News of the curator's message had spread before they even docked. Every species had opinions, theories, and demands. Emergency sessions were being called. Diplomatic channels were burning with urgent communications. Marcus barely had time to remove his environmental suit before being summoned to a closed session of the council's inner circle. The 20 most senior members who handled the most sensitive matters. He had never been invited to such a meeting before. Junior ambassadors simply did not attend. The inner circle met in a secure chamber deep within the station's core. When Marcus entered, he found himself facing beings who had shaped galactic politics for centuries. Kelthar was there, along with representatives from every major power block. Lyria pulsed with anxious light in her designated space. Specialist Chen, the Arbiter began, using that title again. You have reviewed the curator's message multiple times during your return journey. The inner circle wishes to hear your analysis. Marcus felt every eye in the room focus on him. A week ago, he had been ignored. Now suddenly his opinion mattered, because an ancient cosmic entity had singled out humanity as significant. The curator is not hostile, Marcus began carefully, but it is not exactly friendly either. It sees itself as a teacher, a guide. It has been collecting our people to educate them about something it believes we need to understand. It is an abductor, one of the Thros representatives hissed. It has stolen council citizens. This is an act of war, is it? Marcus challenged. The curator claims the colonists are safe and will be returned. It has not demanded anything from us. It has not threatened us. It has simply observed and occasionally taken samples of our people for reasons it considers important. You defend this entity? Kelthar demanded. I am trying to understand it, Marcus replied, which is different from defending it. The curator has had 700 years to attack the council if that was its intention. Instead, it has been studying us. That suggests its goals are not conquest. Then what does it want? Lyria asked. Marcus took a breath, knowing his next words would sound strange. I think it wants us to be ready for something. Something it knows about that we do not. It mentioned things in the dark between stars. Threats we are not prepared to face. And it believes taking our citizens will prepare us? Another delegate asked skeptically. It believes teaching them will create a foundation of knowledge. When the colonists return, they will share what they have learned. That knowledge will spread through our civilizations. The chamber filled with discussion. Some found the idea intriguing. Others saw it as a violation of sovereignty and free will. But everyone agreed on one thing. The curator had specifically called out humanity as the reason it was accelerating its timeline, and that made humans either the most important species in the room or the most dangerous. There is another matter we must discuss, Kelthar said, his tone cold. The curator stated that humanity's presence in the council has forced its hand. That human unpredictability and refusal to accept limitations has changed its calculations. Some might argue that humanity's admission to the council was therefore a mistake. Marcus felt ice in his stomach. He could see where this was going. Are you suggesting humanity be expelled from the council? Lyria asked, her light flaring with anger. I am suggesting we consider whether a species that causes cosmic entities to alter their plans is too disruptive to remain in our organization, Kelthar replied. The Council has maintained peace and stability for thousands of years. Humanity has been here for 3 years, and already we face unprecedented challenges. Correlation is not causation, Marcus shot back, his frustration finally breaking through. The Curator has been operating for 7 centuries. Long before humans left Earth. Long before we even knew there were other civilizations. We did not create this situation. We just happened to be the ones who noticed it first. Because you do not accept the natural order, Kelthar countered. Because you question everything and push boundaries without considering consequences. The Curator said it himself. Humanity is dangerous because you refuse to leave well enough alone. And maybe that is exactly what the Council needs, Marcus said quietly. With all due respect, Ambassador, your species achieved faster than light travel 12,000 years ago. The Council has existed for over 8,000 years. And in all that time, with all that wisdom and experience, you missed an entity that had been collecting your people for centuries. Why? Because you stopped looking for things you did not expect to find. The chamber fell silent. Marcus realized he might have just ended his diplomatic career, but he pressed on anyway. The older species in this council are comfortable. You have reached the top of the galactic hierarchy. You assume you understand how the universe works, but the Curator proves you do not. There are things out there you have not encountered, have not imagined. And humanity, precisely because we are young and ignorant and stubborn, might be the ones who help you see those things. Bold words from a species that barely qualifies as spacefaring, Kelthar said. Bold words from the species that found your blind spot, Marcus replied. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then, to Marcus's surprise, Zixtal clicked softly. The human makes a valid point. Perhaps we have grown too set in our thinking. Perhaps young eyes see what old eyes miss. The Curator clearly believes humanity will push us to evolve. Maybe that is not a threat. Maybe that is exactly what we need. Evolution is not always beneficial, another delegate argued. Sometimes it is simply painful. The debate raged for hours. The inner circle was deeply divided. Some species saw humanity as a valuable catalyst for change. Others viewed them as a dangerous disruption to cosmic order. And some simply wanted someone to blame for the uncomfortable realization that the Council was not as all-knowing as it believed. Finally, the Arbiter called for a preliminary vote. Not on expelling humanity, but on what role humans should play going forward. Should they be elevated to full partners in addressing the Curator situation, or should they be relegated back to junior observer status? The vote was almost exactly split down the middle, requiring the Arbiter's tie-breaking algorithm to make the final decision. The result came back. Humanity would remain in the Council with full participation rights in the Curator matter. But their status would be reviewed again after the situation resolved. It was a victory, but a tenuous one. Marcus had bought humanity time to prove their worth. But if things went wrong, if the Curator situation deteriorated, humans would be the convenient scapegoats. As the meeting adjourned, Lyria approached Marcus. You took a significant risk speaking so directly to Kelthar. I know, Marcus said tiredly. But I am tired of apologizing for humanity's existence. We did not ask to be noticed by cosmic entities. We just refuse to pretend we do not see patterns that are right in front of us. That quality will either make your species great or destroy them, Lyria observed. Maybe both, Marcus admitted. Over the next weeks, the Council worked frantically to prepare for whatever the Curator's next move might be. Scientific teams analyzed every detail of the message. Military forces positioned themselves near known disappearance sites. Diplomatic channels attempted to formulate responses to an entity that had not actually requested dialogue, and Marcus found himself in a strange new role. He was no longer ignored or dismissed. Instead, he was constantly consulted, his opinions sought on matters far beyond his expertise. Because if the Curator cared about human perspective, then the Council needed to understand what that perspective was. It was exhausting. Marcus attended meetings from dawn until late at night. He reviewed proposals, offered insights, and tried to represent not just himself but all of humanity. The pressure was immense, the responsibility crushing, but he also noticed something changing. The other species were starting to listen to him not because they had to, but because his ideas had merit. His questions revealed assumptions they had not examined. His stubborn insistence on looking at problems from new angles opened possibilities they had not considered. Humanity was earning respect not through superior technology or ancient wisdom, but through sheer determination to understand and adapt. Then, exactly 43 days after the discovery of the curator's message, every communication system in council space received a simultaneous transmission. The curator was ready to talk, and it requested that humanity provide the primary negotiator for first contact. Marcus stared at the message on his screen, his hands shaking. The entire galaxy was watching. Every choice he made from this point forward would define how humanity was viewed for generations. The council chose a neutral location for the meeting. Not a station or a planet, but a specially constructed platform floating in deep space far from any inhabited systems. If something went wrong, if the curator proved hostile, the damage would be contained. Marcus arrived 3 days before the scheduled contact, along with an enormous support team. Scientists, military advisors, linguists, psychologists, and representatives from every major council species. They all wanted to observe, to advise, to ensure that the human negotiator did not make a catastrophic mistake. The platform itself was a marvel of engineering, a transparent dome filled with atmosphere and equipped with every communication and sensor system the council could provide. Marcus would conduct the meeting from the center, while observers watched from surrounding chambers, ready to offer guidance through his earpiece. The night before first contact, Marcus could not sleep. He sat in his small quarters reviewing everything he knew about the curator, which was frustratingly little. An entity that existed partially outside normal space, a being that had observed galactic civilization for centuries, a teacher who believed humanity was somehow special or dangerous or both. A soft chime indicated someone requesting entry. Marcus opened the door to find Lyria floating outside. "I thought you might want company," she said, her crystalline form pulsing with gentle light. "Cannot sleep," Marcus admitted. "Too many thoughts racing through my head." "That is understandable. You carry the hopes of your entire species tomorrow, and the fears of 46 others," Marcus added. "Half the council thinks I will start an intergalactic war through sheer human stupidity." Lyria drifted into the room, settling near the viewport that showed the vast emptiness of space. "Can I tell you something that might ease your burden?" "Please." "The reason the curator requested you as primary negotiator is not because humanity is special. It is because you are uncertain. Every other species in the council approaches new situations with the confidence of experience. We have protocols, historical precedents, established methods. We think we know how first contact should proceed because we have done it dozens of times before." Marcus considered that. "And humans do not have that confidence." "Exactly. You know you do not know everything. That makes you curious instead of certain, humble instead of arrogant. You will ask questions the rest of us would never think to ask, because we believe we already have the answers." "So I am qualified through ignorance?" "You are qualified through wisdom masquerading as ignorance," Lyria corrected. "There is a difference." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the stars. Finally, Marcus spoke again. "What if I mess this up? What if my questions are the wrong ones?" "Then you will have tried," Lyria said simply, which is more than most beings can say when faced with the unknown. "The council chose you not just because the curator requested it, but because your entire species embodies a quality we have lost. You still believe that trying matters even when success is uncertain." After Lyria left, Marcus finally managed to sleep for a few hours. When he woke, he felt something unexpected. Not confidence exactly, but acceptance. He was going to meet an ancient cosmic entity, and he had no idea what would happen, and somehow that was okay. The meeting was scheduled for midday station time. Marcus entered the central dome wearing a simple suit, carrying nothing but a handheld recording device. The observation chambers filled with representatives from every species, their attention focused on him. At exactly the appointed time, the space in front of Marcus began to shimmer. The curator manifested slowly, its form coalescing from light and shadow into something almost physical. Marcus had seen the recordings, but experiencing it directly was different. His eyes struggled to focus on the entity, which seemed to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. "Hello, Marcus Chen," the curator said, its voice speaking directly in English this time. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "Thank you for reaching out," Marcus replied, his voice steadier than he expected. Though I admit I am not sure why you specifically requested a human negotiator. We are the newest and least experienced species in the Council. Precisely why I chose you, the curator responded. The older species would approach this meeting with assumptions based on thousands of years of first contact experiences. They would try to fit me into categories they already understand. You have no such assumptions. You simply want to understand. Marcus nodded slowly. You have been observing the Council for 700 years. You have taken over 300 of our people. I do have one assumption. That you have a reason for everything you have done. Correct. Would you like to know what that reason is? Very much. The curator's form shifted and suddenly the space around them filled with images. Galaxies spinning through the void, civilizations rising and falling, and something else. Dark things moving between the stars, entities that made Marcus's mind hurt to observe. The universe is older than your species imagine, the curator began. Before the first of your council species achieved sentience, there were others. Ancient civilizations that reached heights of technology and understanding that would seem like magic to you. Most of them are gone now, destroyed by forces they did not anticipate or could not defeat. Marcus watched the images, seeing entire star systems consumed by darkness, whole civilizations vanishing in moments. What are those things? They have many names. The Devourers, the Entropy Swarm, the end of all things. They exist at the edge of reality, feeding on order and complexity. They are drawn to advanced civilizations like moths to flame, and they are coming to this region of space. The observation chambers erupted in panicked discussion. Marcus heard advisors shouting through his earpiece, demanding he ask specific questions, follow specific protocols. He pulled the earpiece out and let it drift away. When? Marcus asked simply. That is the question, is it not? The curator said almost approvingly. My calculations suggest approximately 300 of your years. Perhaps less if galactic development continues to accelerate. And the people you took from our colonies are being taught. I show them what lies ahead. I help them understand the nature of the threat. When they return, they will carry knowledge that your civilizations need. Some will become scientists who develop new technologies. Others will become teachers who expand your understanding. All will help prepare your species for what comes. Marcus processed this information, ignoring the chaos in the observation chambers. Why not just tell us directly? Why the secrecy and the abductions? Because knowledge without context is useless, the curator replied. If I had appeared before your council 700 years ago and warned them of distant threats, they would have dismissed me or panicked uselessly. Instead, I have been building a foundation, slowly introducing concepts, creating individuals who understand. By the time the Devourers arrive, your civilizations will have the knowledge base needed to face them. That is a lot of assumption about what is good for us, Marcus said quietly. Yes, the curator agreed. I have been playing guardian without consent. I have been manipulating events to achieve outcomes I believe are necessary. You are correct to question this. It is not the action of an equal or a friend. It is the action of someone who believes they know better. The honesty surprised Marcus. So why change your approach now? Why reveal yourself at all? The curator's form pulsed with colors Marcus had no names for. Because of your species. Humanity developed faster than I anticipated. You went from industrial revolution to faster than light travel in less than 2 centuries. That acceleration disrupted my carefully planned timeline. Other species began to notice you, to study you, to wonder how you achieved so much so quickly. Your presence in the council created curiosity and competition that I had not factored into my calculations. So we ruined your plan. You forced me to adapt, the curator corrected, which made me realize that perhaps my approach was flawed. Perhaps treating these civilizations like children to be guided was not the correct path. Perhaps what you need is not careful manipulation but honest partnership. So I am offering that now. Full disclosure of the threat. Access to everything I have learned. A chance for your civilizations to prepare openly rather than through my subtle guidance. Marcus stood silent for a long moment. In the observation chambers, every being waited to hear what the human would say next. The colonists you have taken, Marcus finally said. Will they be returned safely? Yes, within the next rotation of your council's meeting schedule. They are healthy and unharmed, though changed by what they have seen. And will you stop taking people without permission? Yes. If the council agrees to my partnership, I will work openly rather than in shadow. Marcus nodded slowly. Then I have a proposal. Not an answer, but a suggestion. Return the colonists as promised. Provide the council with everything you know about these devourers. Then step back and let us decide how to use that information. No more manipulation. No more taking people. Just honest information and our own choices about what to do with it. You would trust the council to make wise decisions? I would trust them to make their own decisions, Marcus replied. Wisdom is something you learn through experience, including the experience of making mistakes.